The Day of the Jackal is a television series that came out last year in November and it aired through to December on Sky TV in the United States. Not in the United States, the United Kingdom. Sky Atlantic. Now, this is a thriller, like a spy thriller. It's based on an older movie from 1973, which was in turn based on a book from 1971 by Frederick Forsyth. I haven't read the book, I haven't watched the original movie, but I did just finish watching the series, and it's excellent. It is by far one of the best thriller TV shows I've watched. That's saying something because I watch a lot of TV. Now, it focuses mostly on two characters. We have the Jackal, who's a ex-British Army assassin, and we have an MI6 agent named Bianca Pullman. Now, the Jackal's played by Eddie Redmayne. He's a pretty, well, not niche, but he's not as big of an actor as some of the others you see in these shows. And Lashana Lynch has been in a few things before, but the series really puts them both in a very good position to boost their careers even more. And last year, when it came out, I didn't hear much about it at all. I only heard about it recently from a friend who recommended it. And then I looked up online and was like, oh shit, this is good. And it has been renewed for a second season. Now, there are quite different aspects to this TV series than the film and the novel, from what I've heard. In the film, the Jackal dies at the end, fails his mission. The target's very different. It's a political leader in France rather than a billionaire in this. But they still have that similar political feeling to them. Now, of course, this is in a more modern setting, and the director, well, not director, but the creator, Ronan Bennett, wanted to make it more modern, give it a new spin to it. The series itself also has multiple directors for each episode. I think each person did like 2 or 3 episodes. We have Brian Kirk, who worked on Game of Thrones, Anthony Phillipson, who worked on The Last Kingdom, along with Paul Wilmhurst, which is also a work on The Last Kingdom, and Anu Menon, which is a director I've never heard of. I haven't seen any of her other work, and from what I can find online, she hasn't got a lot of work to her name. Obviously now she has this, which I'm hoping will help her, because the series is good. And this was first announced in 2022, filmed through 7 months in 2023, and aired in November of 2024. It aired on Sky Atlantic in the UK and Peacock in the US, but now I'm pretty sure you can find it anywhere on Netflix or on Amazon. I could be wrong, but it's definitely good. And this was the largest Sky original launch ever. It had like 3 million viewers. Really good. I must say the acting throughout this is excellent. To give you a basic summary of the story, the Jackal is an assassin who's been contracted to kill a billionaire who goes by UDC. His name is Doug Charles. And this has got a deadline of not too long, I think it's a few weeks, before he unleashes some technology that will have more financial openness with where your taxes and all that go, called River. We also follow Bianca, who's the MI6 agent who's trying to stop the Jackal. That's basically it for the non-spoiler segment of this video. I will leave a timestamp probably on screen right now telling you when you can skip to that won't have any more spoilers, and that will basically be my analysis of the reaction to it and my hopes for season 2 along with some theories, but again that's still going to have spoilers, so just be prepared. And with that, before we dive into the show itself, I'd like to speak about the characters that bring this show to life. Starting off with the Jackal. Okay, so I'm going to break this up into 2 segments. This is going to be the Jackal and the people that orbit him, and then I'm going to speak about Bianca and the people that orbit her, since these are our 2 main characters. And starting off, we have the Jackal himself, played by Eddie Redmayne. Now, we don't learn this at first, but later on we do learn that his name is Alexander Duggan. He's a former British Army sniper. He has this air of mystique and mystery when we first see him, and it slowly gets peeled away as the episodes go by. But even by the end, you still have this uncertainty about his past and his origins, which I'm hoping to see expanded in a second season. Now, he's practical and pragmatic. This is a man who will always get the job done, no matter what it takes. And I'll delve deeper into that with one of the other characters later on, but it's something he has a lot in common with Bianca. They don't stop. They have to get their job done, regardless of what it costs. And we see it throughout this, how the efforts he goes to kill UDC. And even in the beginning, he sets a world record shot just to kill someone. It's quite good. He's, on the other hand, also a very family-oriented man. And we see this with his family in Spain, namely Nuria, Marisa, Alvaro, and their child. Now, his family does mean a lot to him, and you have bits and pieces showing that his family actually means more to him than basically anything else he's doing. It's quite a good contrast. You see him be so cold when it comes to his job, but then when it comes to his family, he's a much warmer character. He's also very proud, not of the work that he does, but of his own abilities. He's a perfectionist, and he dislikes mess. Especially if something really goes wrong, it does bother him. You can see it does. He's a highly intelligent assassin. And it's not a thing about killing innocents, because throughout this, he does kill innocents, if he has to. Especially in his past, he's done it before, but it's always to get the job done. One very interesting part, which I'll get to when I talk about one of the later episodes, is the moment at which he decided to leave the army and basically desert to become an assassin. We also find out that he cares a lot about his reputation. I mean, he hates not being paid, and again, that's another aspect to his character, which plays into the plot later on. Now, directly circling the Jackal in his family, at least, is Nuria, who's played by Ursula Corbera. That's his wife. She's also very family-oriented, and she loves her husband. She doesn't seem too bothered by the fact that he's a criminal. She is bothered, but not to the point where she hates it. Her bigger issue is that she hates being lied to, which she did throughout their whole marriage. It's only later on she found out the truth about him. And she hates that her family's been put in danger by this. Very interesting part to her character. We have Marisa, played by Pucci Lagarde, and sorry if I'm butchering these names, but Marisa is Nuria's mother. She's very caring about her daughter, and she's a lot more moral than Nuria and the Jackal are. But she's not a major character, same as Alvaro, which is Nuria's brother, played by John Arias. He's greedy. He plays into the fact that, he doesn't trust the Jackal, but he'll also use the Jackal's resources if it benefits him. He's a very immoral character, but he does love his sister. We get hints that there's a bit more to their past as well, and obviously it comes to a boil later on. Now, directly outside the family, we have his work. And here I'd like to talk about 3 people in particular. We have Xena, who's played by Eleanor Matsura. Now, she is contracted by Winthrop, played by Charles Dance, to hire the Jackal. Xena's a very intelligent woman. She's a fixer, and she has a deep level of respect for the Jackal, especially when she finds out how the Jackal treated someone who didn't pay him. You can tell she respects him. She's very resourceful, pretty able to find the Jackal whenever she needs to, even when they haven't communicated. And by the end of the show, we can see that she's very vengeful too. Don't screw this woman over, Her employer, of course, is Winthrop, a very arrogant man. He's on the board of the company that's involved with River, and he wants UDC gone. He's very manipulative, very used to getting what he wants, and I feel like that's going to be his downfall eventually. And of course we have UDC, Uledag Charles, the target of this assassination, as played by Khalid Abdallah. Also a very good actor. He's, from the top, a very altruistic person. He is a billionaire, and I have a feeling those 2 traits don't always get along, but I can get why he's like he is. He's also very foolish though, and he does take risks, especially when he thinks he's doing it for the greater good, which gives him this very selfless trait. He's a very sympathetic character, and I can see why people would like him, But obviously by the end of the show, he's not really a factor anymore in the story. Now, along with those main characters, there's three people I'd like to mention that are in relation to the Jackal, that aren't like the most important part of his plot, but I feel like they deserve mentioning. Now we have Norman Stoke, who's actually played by a very well-known actor, Richard Dormer. If I'm not incorrect, he was in Game of Thrones, and he is basically the Jackal's gunsmith. Now we see more about Stoke's family, but that's a lot more towards Bianca's plot. Stoke does interact with Bianca at one point, but it's minor, especially how his story comes to a close. This man's very professional, and he does care about his family, but he's more in tune with his criminal side. He's skilled to a T, but it's implied in the show that he's probably like one of the best gunsmiths in the world. And he has a deep level of respect for the Jackal, which does make it a bit more tragic the way he ends up. But I can totally see it going that way, especially when the Jackal decide to actually meet him face to face. Another two characters are Gary Cobb, who served with the Jackal and was the only other person that survived in the army when Jackal killed his team, something I'll get into later. He was the Jackal's spotter and actually involved with their first few hits. I'm wondering how he's going to show up because we don't really know much about him. We are definitely going to see him in a future season, though. He did survive, so I want to see him. And he's played by Gerard Kearns. And then we have a character that I feel like isn't brought up a lot. You know, when I looked up online the most influential characters, I even asked Grok, which I hate doing, about influential characters. It didn't bring this character up, but I feel like it has a much larger aspect to the story. And that's Rasmus. Now, Rasmus is played by Andrins Jessen, and he's a minor character, very minor character. He's someone that the Jackal meets later on and forms a bit of a romantic relationship in order to further his own means. Now, Rasmus is a very kind character, a very helpful character, and it makes it all the more tragic when you see the Jackal show a more sensitive side and you realize that the Jackal's actually just manipulating him to get what he wants. It helps play into the fact that the Jackal will get the job done, no matter what, even if it means getting involved with another man. And I have a feeling that's something that a lot of people would probably talk about. I haven't watched any videos on this series. I don't know if there is any, so I'm just doing this blind, but I feel like that's something that's a big part of the character, and Rasmus helped show that. So his sacrifice was meaningful, at least in a little bit, towards the storytelling. And yeah, those are the main characters that surround the Jackal. Very interesting cast that plays off of him really well. And you can see a lot of the parallels to the other protagonist, Bianca, which I will now discuss. Bianca Pullman is an MI6 agent who, for one thing, is very devoted to her job. She does what she sees necessary, and if she sees something as necessary, she can justify it. I can feel like this would rub a lot of people the wrong way. Lashana Lynch has a very arrogant way of playing the character, which I feel like does help, especially with her story arc. But if her story didn't go the way it did, then I would be very unhappy with the way her character acts throughout the show. Because her arrogance isn't warranted. She's not good at her job. It failed up after failed up. It's just, as someone who can see how would MI6 even keep her on when she just keeps failing, she fails upwards. But I can see why they did this with her character, and I can definitely see why her character came to an end the way it did. Bianca has this issue where she also struggles to juggle her family and her work. Now, on the other hand, her family does know that she's a part of MI6, compared to Jackal's family doesn't know, but they still have this parallel struggle to separate the two. And this, of course, leads to her end. She cannot let go of her job, no matter the risk, no matter what could happen to her or the people around her. And she fails pretty often, but to be fair, she refuses to give up, making her a very difficult character to stop. And she loves her family, and this helps her justify her decisions, but in the end, her heart's on her job, and that's what leads to her end. Now, speaking about Bianca's family, we have Jasmine and Paul. Jasmine, played by Florissa Kumara, is her daughter, and she cares about her mother, but is tired of her devotion to her work. There isn't as much of a focus put on Bianca's family as there is on the Jackals, so there's not much to say about them. Paul is a very similar character, just a bit more aggressive about it. He's played by Sule Remy, sorry about the pronunciation, and yeah, he's very much the same as his daughter, but he's a lot more straightforward. He knows Bianca will always pick MI6 over the family, and at the end, that's what she does. Stupid decision, but it's how it goes. Now, immediately surrounding her, we have the people at MI6. Most notably, Osita, played by Chakuri Ibuchi, and he's a really well-known actor. He's been in a ton of shows and movies. He was in Guardians of the Galaxy 3, I believe. He's a skeptical and intelligent man, and he's one of her, I believe he's one of her superiors, but he doubts her at first. Eventually, he does believe her, and he's going to be integral to the next season because he does survive. But directly above Bianca is Isabel. Now, it's played by Leah Williams, and at first you think she's a good guy. You know, she's MI6, she's trying to do what she needs to do. But then when they start discussing the mole, you start to piece things together and realize, wait, only one person makes sense as the mole, and this, of course, is Isabel. She's the mole feeding information to Winthrop and people related to the Jackal. She's intelligent, manipulative, and definitely a dangerous character that I know is going to be one of the protagonists the next season, especially with her promotion. We also have Vincent, played by Nick Blood. He's another agent that works hand in hand with Bianca. After he helps her deal with an issue, he basically becomes her sidekick. And right at the end, when they decide to go after the Jackal, it's just the two of them. He's loyal to her to a fault, capable enough as a fighter, but when they were facing someone with superior skill like the Jackal, they did not come out on top. And his loyalty is what cost him. A few minor characters is Edward Carver, and he's the fixer for MI6 that's trying to find the mole. He's a very minor character, helps forward the plot. I think John Joe Neal played him pretty well, but nothing too special. We have Whitelock, which is the Foreign Secretary, played by Adam James. He's a bit more important because we eventually find out he's working directly with Winthrop. This corruption runs deep, and he's played a big role behind the scenes of the show, especially in pushing Bianca to go after the Jackal herself and leading to her death. And then your more important emotional characters are Larry, Allison, and Emma. Now, Larry is the brother of Norman Stoke, Allison being his wife, and Emma being their daughter. Bianca originally takes Emma into custody to try and get to Larry and Allison, to try and get to Norman, and this ends with Emma's death from a heart attack, which is very unfortunate when Bianca eventually decides to keep this from Larry and Allison in order to keep manipulating them. She manipulates Allison, who in turn manipulates her husband, and they're very tragic victims. They're not good people, but did they really deserve this? Allison was quite easily manipulated, obviously because of her love for her daughter. But when they do find out what happened, they're both hateful. And when Larry finds out that Allison helped Bianca, he kills her. Gets arrested, goes to jail, and these actors are very good. There's one specific scene later on in the series where Patrick O'Kane is having a conversation with Bianca in prison. And if you've seen the show, you'll know how that ends. I'll get into it when the episode comes, but it was harrowing. It was really good. And I think it works pretty well. One minor character, I say character in quotation marks, is River. Now, River is this technology that UDC is working on that's going to basically have a lot more financial openness. That's how I explain in the show. It's a technology that you can tell is very popular on the left. And I feel like if you had to have something nowadays like that, people would be jumping at it. And it's a good plot device. Drives the story, and like I said, it's not quite a character, but it has a character of its own in how important it is to the story. Everything revolves around this technology, and I doubt it's the last we're going to see of it, despite it being pretty much shelved at the end of the show.
Talk about these. This is why I'm watching.
Now, without further ado, let's jump into the show itself, starting with episode 1. Now, in this episode, we see the Jackal, whose name we actually don't know yet, stage this attack on an office building and kills a whole bunch of people and wounds Elias Fest. He's the son of a German politician, and the Jackal uses this to get that German politician to visit the hospital by his son. He assassinates him using a sniper shot from like 3.8 kilometers away, which is a world record in the show. It would be a world record in real life. But it's really good. Now, one minor thing we do see here is that the Jackal does use disguises. Pretty good disguises too, but he's willing to use any means necessary to get what he does. After this, we see an MI6 firearm expert, Bianca Pullman, studying the footage because they obviously want to find this assassin, and she figures out that he used a custom-made sniper rifle that can come apart into 2 pieces. They theorize that the maker of this was Norman Stoke, which is someone MI6 is known about, but they don't know his location. He's a very well-known gunsmith in this world. While this is all happening, the Jackal gets an offer for a new job, and here we meet Zena Johnson, who gives him his new contract. The contract being UDC, Ulla Doug Charles, who's about to release River. This technology is going to cause a lot of shit, and they want him dead. The Jackal wants $100 million to kill this target, and he, like I said, we don't know his name yet, but eventually he does say that he first be called the Jackal. There's even some issues where Zena wants to meet him in person, which is something that he does not agree with normally. Now, we do get our first hints of the Jackal's family life. He comes home in Spain, and this was actually filmed in Spain, this manor. I believe it was filmed in Croatia, but I could be wrong. And he isn't getting paid for the German politician's assassination, 3.75 million. Now, even though he's just wanted a contract of 100 million, this 3.75 million means something, and it's something you'll see a lot later on, that he cares about his reputation. While this is going on, Bianca works with her asset, Alison, which is the sister-in-law of the gunsmith, to try and find him, and she has Alison's daughter arrested. This is going to be a big crux later on, but the daughter, Emma, goes into cardiac arrest in custody. We find out in episode 2 that she actually died. And this is how the episode ends. It's a very strong start to the series. You meet both of our main characters. You get a sense of what they'll do to drive themselves forward. We can see that Bianca is willing to do anything to get what she needs. We can see that the assassin's a very capable man, and you'll see how much more capable he can be. So moving on to episode 2, we'll go back to Bianca, and she covers up Emma's death. Tries to continue to force Alison to find Norman, because obviously Alison still thinks her daughter's in prison, not dead. It's pretty scummy, but obviously it's MI6, what do you expect? Now the Jackal is spending time at home, and he leaves Spain because he gets a lead on who is withholding payment for the assassination. He does his assassination contracts very anonymously, but he's able to use a bank to try and learn who screwed him over with this. The wife, Nuria, drops the Jackal off, but when she is getting ready to leave, he returns back to town and goes to his bank to try and find out what's going on. She sees him, thinking that he has an affair, but her paranoia is going to be a lot worse when she finds out what he actually is doing. Now, while this is going on, the Jackal meets with Zena again and says that her employers agreed to the terms, but he only has basically a month to get it done. Jackal finds this funny, and he actually demands a 20 million finder's fee in a way. He does get this also. The Jackal also finds out that the person who hired him was the son of that politician that he shot. There's actually a funny scene where, while he's trying to demand payment, the person on the other end types "fuck you." Very personal way of complaining and not wanting to pay. This is how I figured out that it was probably the son who wanted his father dead and got pissed off that he got shot. And that's why he's not paying the Jackals, because he shot him. Back to Bianca. Bianca's trying to figure out who this assassin is, and she guesses that he's British and former British Army. I think because of the type of gun used or type of bullets. It's a stretch, but she is correct. Alison's able to get Norman's phone number, and Bianca's able to track the phone number to Belarus. She goes to try and arrest him, and the operation goes wrong. Norman kills 2 people and escapes. This is a complete fuck-up, but Norman was somehow tipped off. And obviously this is the mole that's told him that they're on their way. A very big failure on Bianca's part, but like I said, she fails a lot in the show, doesn't really get punished for it. On to episode 3, Bianca has retrieved a suitcase from Norman's location, and it was a prototype for the sniper rifle that the Jackal used to kill the German. It basically comes apart and fits in the briefcase and is completely undetectable on metal detectors. Now, her superiors want her to continue the investigation. Here we meet Isabel and Osita, at least in a more official sense. But we also have an MI6 fixer that begins trying to figure out who led the leak. They actually suspect her colleague and a couple other people, but they don't have anything solid yet. In Germany, because the Jackal's now tying up loose ends first, the Jackal's phoned by his wife, who tells him that she saw him. He completely lies and says, he's not having an affair. He isn't, but she still doesn't really trust him. Her mother and her brother search his home. They find a vault hidden in the back wall. They eventually will get into it. Now, back in in London, Alison and Larry, her husband, have learnt that Emma's dead. They have come to London to identify the body, and Alison, quite obviously, is not happy with Bianca, despite Bianca wanting even more help. Norman phones Larry, tells him what happened, and Larry realizes, okay, well, somehow they found out about Norman. He confronts his wife and kills her when he finds out she betrayed him. Which may seem a bit harsh, but in his eyes, she's the reason their daughter died. So yeah, I can understand the anger. The Jackal, meanwhile, impersonates a driver for the German man's son and kidnaps Elias, confronts him and shoots him dead. Now, this is quite interesting because we see that he does get angry and his voice is captured on a phone somewhere over here, and it's how Bianca gets more evidence that he is British. He kills him, blows up the car and escapes. This does cause shit with his new employers because they didn't want so much attention on him, but it doesn't really matter. Now, Bianca finds out that his name is the Jackal, so that also helps her learn more about him. Back at Spain, Nuria and the family break into the hidden vault, and it has money, weapons, a cast of his face, and while this is all happening, the Jackal's watching this on his phone using his CCTV. He's leaving Germany, getting ready for the next job. It's like a big reveal moment, but he's able to lie about it later on, which is quite good. In episode 4, we have the Jackal trying to return, get out of Germany, goes through France, and actually kills a motorist and a cop when he's in a car accident. Very sloppy, but he did what he had to do. Now, MI6 do learn that he's been hired again, but they can't figure out who he's been hired to kill. They will eventually, though. Bianca learns more about the British Army officers that could have been the sniper, and there's only one that's capable of making the shot, a man named Alexander Duggan. He's assumed dead from an IED explosion in 2013 in Afghanistan. Now, the series I think is set in 2024, so that's 11 years ago that he's supposedly been dead. We do learn later on that Alexander Duggan is the Jackal, which is something Bianca should have assumed right from the bat, because, of course, a world record sniper would fake his own death. I mean, come on. Meanwhile, the Jackal tells his wife to come visit him in Paris, and he lies to her saying that he does corporate espionage. Now, she's still worried about the legality, but she knows now that he's not cheating on her, so she's slightly trusting him. It's not bad. We also have another loose end to tie up with Larry Stoke, and he draws Bianca into a trap. He chases her with a knife. I know it's so typically British, and she's able to escape with an agent named Vincent Pine. She gets him reassigned to her team, and as we know later on, he becomes basically her sidekick. She gets back home and finds that Larry has taken her daughter hostage. She shoots him, subdues him, and he gets arrested. But this does show the bleed between work life and home life that she has problems managing. It only gets a lot worse, but this is a big aspect of it. Now, the Jackal is in Talon, starting preparations for killing UDC. We learn that UDC plans to launch Talon here, or at least announce the launch, and here's where he wants to kill him. He almost falls to his death, climbing up on top to find a good sniping spot as well. He drops his phone, which is a minor aspect, but we will see this be a bit more important later on, because a worker named Rasmus hands him his phone and they chat a bit, get along, and he actually gets Rasmus's number. He goes back to his hotel room and is confronted by Xena. Now, Xena's employers were very nervous about him going off the record to kill someone in Germany, but this is where Xena had a bit more respect for him, because she realized, oh well, that's what he does to people who screw him over. And obviously she's capable enough to find him. It was very impressive. Halfway through the series, we're on episode 5. Now, the Jackal has to include Xena in his planning, even though now she's seen his face, she knows a bit more about him, he's not happy, but he has to do it. Back in Spain, his wife is still a bit nervous about his story, but there's nothing he can do about that. Now, the Jackal contacts Norman because he needs a new weapon. He has an idea for a boot, which we'll see later on. But Norman, back in Belarus, was wounded, so he needs help building the gun. He doesn't trust anyone but the Jackal. This is actually the first time the Jackal and Norman have met. Something that's quite interesting, because they do still get along, but there's a sense that the Jackal will kill Norman if he becomes a liability, and we will see this later on. Now, the Jackal travels to Budapest to help him make the gun. They use a bunch of 3D printers, and they build a very short-range rifle that can be hidden in that boot. It's good enough for 8 shots, and the Jackal uses quite a few of them in this episode. Now, Norman tells the Jackal that he was tipped off by someone in MI6, but doesn't tell him who it is. Doesn't really matter, because the Jackal won't learn about it yet. I think he'll probably learn in the next season. Back in London, Bianca's husband and daughter leave to stay at the husband's ex-wife, but I can fully understand this because someone broke in to try and kill their daughter. Bianca and Vincent torture Larry, who gives them more of a description of Norman's hideout, and Bianca's able to learn that UDC is the Jackal's target, because it makes the most sense. Now, MI6 work to find this hideout using the hints given by Larry, and they're able to. Bianca and Vincent arrive in Budapest with a team, and the Jackal, since he was out testing the rifle, is on his way back when he sees MI6 arrive. Now, he's able to evade being captured, but Norman puts up a good fight, but is subdued and tied up. The Jackal decides, well, he's got to kill Norman, because otherwise they'll learn more about him, and he does. This is why I say he's very practical as a character. He will do what needs to be done, even if it means killing an ally he's had clearly for years. And I'm hoping we see more of Norman, obviously in the Jackal's backstory in Season 2, but for now, he did what he had to do, and that's how it ends. The Jackal's able to escape, but he rests in a barn and is knocked out by a farmer, ending the episode. Very good episode, bit of a weaker ending with him just being knocked out by some random farmer, and I will argue that episode 6 is a bit of a weaker episode, but it's still good. He's taken prisoner by this farmer and tries to negotiate his release. Now, the farmer, his brother, and a farmhand come to try and get money out of him or whatever when he promises to pay them. He kills the farmer and the brother, takes the farmhand hostage, and drives off. Now, Bianca, they learn about the deaths of the farmer and that and begin investigating. You know, they're right on his heels. Something that I can fully understand. I mean, they wouldn't just give up, you know. Now, the Jackal phones his wife, says he might not make it home, and the wife does something very interesting. She actually offered to help him. She's quite clearly angry, but she wants to help her husband. Now, cutting back to UDC, we'll learn a bit more about him. He's getting ready for the launch of River in Talon, and his board doesn't want him to do it. Now, I think Winthrop is actually a part of this board, but we don't see that, and they're not happy with what he's doing. He ignores it and prepares to do his presentation anyway. Back in Budapest, the Jackal actually shows some compassion and releases the farmhand that helped him. He threatens him in silence, makes the guy shoot himself, but he doesn't kill him. His wife arrives in the city and helps him make a disguise as an old man to get through customs. On the way to Talon, because they're both on the flight, Bianca actually gets rerouted to the same town, and he sits behind her on the flight. He gets back to Talon and meets Rasmus once again, who's now his way into the venue. He seduces him, which is also like a point of contention. I have a few people would wonder if he's bisexual or not, but he isn't, in my opinion. And this is for the fact that I think overall, more than anything, he is just a practical man. If he has to have sex with a guy to get what he needs out of his assassination, he'll do it, regardless of his own personal feelings on it. You could argue that he is bisexual because he does care about Rasmus, at least to a point where he seems polite to him, like they have some sort of connection. But either way, the story does end tragically for him. Into episode 7, the Jackal actually asks for help, needs Xena's help to get rid of Bianca and Vincent because they're becoming an issue. Now, this is a sloppy part. Xena sends a hit squad to kill Bianca and Vincent at the embassy, but they're able to survive. They kill their attackers. They hired Russian locals to do it, to try and make it seem inconspicuous, I guess. But now Winthrop and the others decide that, now they're not hiring foreigners anymore, they're going to do it ourselves. I can understand this. They failed. Now, back in Spain, Nuria's brother steals some of the money and a gun from Jackal's vault to try and do a business deal. The Jackal sees this on camera, but he doesn't do anything yet. He continues working with Rasmus and lies that he's an architectural engineer. He knows a lot about architecture, which makes sense as an assassin, so it was a good cover. And he does stay in an Airbnb at first in this episode, meets police officers there investigating some sort of robbery of one of the other units, and as they're starting to get more and more of his facial features known, the police officer they met identifies him. They go to the B&B, Bianca and Vincent, but he's not there. Obviously, he's staying with Rasmus, the gay guy. The Jackal's able to get into the venue, uses the schematics, and finds out where he's going to hide. Now, Rasmus does tell him that the place is getting locked down way before the speech is being done, and the Jackal decides, okay, fuck that, he's going to wait. He arrives before the team locks down the building and waits there for 2 days. He thinks about how he met his wife. She was actually a waitress when they first met. And the launch gets to start. The Jackal goes into position, finds his perfect place to make a shot, and yet someone else tries to kill UDC. This is a bit of a mystery at first, They shoot UDC, or at least attempt to, fail, and UDC is covered by security and Jackal's unable to kill him. So he ends up having to leave the venue. As he leaves, Rasmus recognizes him. And, this is a loose end. The Jackal turns to Rasmus, gets close, and he kills him. And that's how the episode ends. A completely innocent guy that the Jackal manipulated and took advantage of, and in the end, met his end by his hand. Very good episode. On to episode 8, we find out who the second assassin is. This was a team member of UDC security who had mental issues and just didn't trust him. I thought it would be another assassin who the conspirators have tried to hire to make sure that the job got done, but no, it was just a random guy. The conspirators and UDC now both struggle because obviously the launch didn't happen and they need him dead. Bianca, meanwhile, begins to think that this is Alexander Duggan. She goes back to the theory. They do have a moment where the Foreign Secretary is worked with to declassify Duggan's army file. The Secretary's name is Whitelock. We'll see a bit more of him later on. And eventually Bianca gets to read this file. Nuria, on the other hand, sees a news broadcast with the image of the Jackal, and phones him, realizing the truth about him. He's an assassin, kills people for money. Pretty shit, but you know, what you gonna do? Here's a scene that I really liked. Bianca actually visits Larry in prison, but he has a shank under the table, and at first I thought he's gonna attack her, you know, he's gonna try and kill her. But he doesn't. He kills himself in front of her. As an agent, that would probably be fucking traumatic, and it's just another failure on top of Bianca's failures. She's not getting information from him at all. Now, they're still trying to figure out who the mole is. One of the members of MI6 is detained, but it's not them. We do find out a bit more about the Jackal's past, though. He is revealed to be Alexander Duggan. He's a sniper that works for this covert team that arrests or kills Taliban leaders in Afghanistan. Now, while they're relaxing, you know, on a break, him and his spotter are offered £40,000 to do a freelance hit. They do it and get paid pretty well for it. They're very happy with that. Now, the team goes on a mission to arrest a senior leader, but the leader of Duggan's team gets into a firefight, and they kill a wedding party. Which is, like I said, Duggan doesn't care about innocence, but he does care about mess. And he even has a line where he says this was just messy. That's his biggest issue. I say his leader, but his leader actually was back at base. Everywhere else on the team did this. And an airstrike's called in to try and get rid of any of the evidence. Duggan isn't happy with this. And like I said, I feel like it was more because of the mess, but he could also have been unhappy about being a war crime. So I think even children were killed. And he plants an IED in the road, gets the crew to land on it, and gets Gary to follow him out to a safe distance. He then takes out his phone, dials a number, and kills his entire team. And tells Gary that now they've got to disappear. Gary's horrified by this. And I feel like we're going to start seeing him a lot more later on. Because they probably both became freelance assassins after this. Back in episode 9, the Jackal goes back to Croatia to see what's going on with UDC's island home. He has his own island, you know, as billionaires who don't have lists or clients do. But yeah. And he's confronted by Xena because the board sees this as a failure on his part. And it wasn't even his fault. The Jackal goes back to Spain and meets his wife. He tells his wife the truth. He says, you know, he's an assassin. And he promises to quit after dealing with UDC. Wife's not happy with this, obviously. Meanwhile, the brother of his wife, Alvaro, sets up a business meeting with the Jackal and a gangster. Now, the wife freaks out at this because she doesn't want to get involved with a gangster who has a reputation like this, and she asks the Jackal to help. Now, the brother thinks the Jackal's gonna come to the meeting, get involved, and sort things out. But the Jackal borrows a boat, goes to sea, and assassinates the gangster in front of the brother. It freaks him out, and he actually gets arrested. He's not happy about this. Now, back to Bianca, she actually gets news of this death, and this catches her attention, allowing them to realize that the Jackal has some connection to Spain. She gets a bit pissed off because her higher-up ends the investigation very suddenly, but I can understand it because, again, there's been failure after failure without much leads. The Jackal goes to Croatia and finally enacts his plan. Murders a local fisherman and steals his boat. And then while UDC is having his morning swim, which his partner actually convinced him to do, the Jackal assassinates his minder and then, with a very well done shot, kills UDC in the water, fleeing the area. He's done his job. 100 million should be his. And he got it done on time before River launched. It's going to be a big point of contention. Into the final episode, River's release is now postponed indefinitely. I have a bit of a suspicion about this, but I'll get into this when I speak about my theory for the next season. Bianca quits MI6 because she's not happy about Kirby not wanting to pursue Jackal, and we find out that Kirby actually works for Whitelock, who are both working for Winthrop. She's the mole. Now, Kirby lures Bianca by telling her, you know, we know where the Jackal is. We you can do an operation, it's not on the books, but if you want to get this done, you should get it done. To manipulate her. Bianca accepts the job despite what her family says, and she takes Vincent with her. She could have let this go. She could have said, no, I'm not going after him. She could have lived a life, been with her family, and that's it. But she can't let things go. And she ropes Vincent into coming with her. Now, they both go and stake out the Jackal's home, his Spanish estate, and they actually watch as his wife leaves with the child. The wife has had enough. She's decided that the place isn't safe enough, even with the Jackal there, and she's abandoning his family. She takes a whole bunch of money and she leaves. Now, the Jackal comes back eventually. He tries to leave Croatia, but is wounded in a car crash and kidnaps this elderly couple. And it has a bit more of a darker moment when they try to kill him and he eventually has to kill both of them. It really affects him. You can see how now killing innocents is starting to get to him. And he gets home. He's shocked his wife's not there. But he doesn't really have much time to think because Bianca and Vincent are making their move. They infiltrate the house and kill Nuria's brother, Alvaro, who Nuria basically told to fuck off after he came out of prison. He was drunk, pulls out a gun, and he gets shot and killed, but this lets the Jackal know that they're there. We have a very tense segment. The Jackal kills Vincent, and him and Bianca have a bit of a confrontation. She asks why he does it, and he says because he has to, And Bianca said it doesn't have to end like this. Very good shot when he's gotten around her, he's at her side, and she doesn't know it. And he just ends it with, it does. And he pulls the trigger, killing Bianca. She got killed because of her own hubris in a way. She really wanted to stop the Jackal, and she, in the end, gave up her life to try and do so. The Jackal eventually leaves, gets on the phone with his wife trying to get her attention, but she's long gone. He's angry over this, saying she can't do this to him, And he's ambushed by a hit team, assumably from Winthrop. They run him off the road. And it cuts to black. Don't see more about this. Now, back to the MI6, Kirby's actually promoted and says that Bianca and Vincent went rogue. But Halcro, who was originally suspected of being the mole, he knows the truth. He got a text message from Bianca saying that Kirby sent her on this mission. And if anything goes wrong, he knows who did it. Now, he knows that she must be the mole, or at least crooked. It's going to come into it in the next season. Back in Budapest, the Jackal arrives and meets with Xena. Now, he's barely got even a scratch. And we saw earlier in this that Xena also escaped an assassination attempt. People tried to come into her hotel and she got away. She decides to tell Jackal the truth, who hired her, which is Winthrop. And she wants revenge. The Jackal agrees. He also wants revenge, but he has something to do first. He has someone to find. And obviously this is going to be his wife and his child. And that's how the series ends. This is very different from the movie. From what I've read, the movie ends with his death, he fails his mission, and there's no precedent for a sequel. But with this, there's so much more they can do. And I'm hoping to see what's next, because they should be filming by now. It was renewed like 2 episodes in, and we're definitely going to be seeing this series come out next year. Definitely worth a watch.
Wow, what a terrific audience.
Now, The Day the Jackal had a pretty good reception. It's got an 85% on Rotten Tomatoes, I think a 72 on Metacritic. It's favourable. People have a lot of agreements with me when it comes to people's performances. Redmayne particularly actually got nominated for a Golden Globe along with the show itself. He didn't get it, which is bullshit. I think he definitely deserved an award for his acting. The action's very good, the cinematography is excellent, and now that I'm looking up online, this Star launch was actually 4.5 million viewers in 26 days, and number 1 on Peacock's top 10 when it came out. It's excellent. There are issues though, and dipping into them, I'd like to talk about Bianca. Bianca's a big point of contention for me in this show, to the point where I actually was happy that her character got killed off. She has issues with her arrogance, and her arrogance isn't really disproven. Like, she doesn't really get punished enough for fucking up constantly, and her death is basically just because she came into contact with the main character. If she didn't go after him, she wouldn't have died, and she would have never learned. It's crap, and her acting was not as good. Same as minor aspects, like her family wasn't the greatest, definitely a weak point for the show. And don't get me wrong, the show needed to have Bianca in it as the contrast to the Jackal. You can't just have him as the main character. But I do feel like she had issues. Maybe a different actress could have done better, or slight tweaks to the writing would have been good. Her arrogance just really wasn't the greatest. Now, I did see some people online complaining about the family subplot dragging a bit, and I feel like it did, especially with the gangster part of Alvaro. You could have gone rid of that a lot easier, but it's not too bad. You know, it wasn't the worst aspect. I actually did like that they emphasized that the Jackal is still a human, you know, he's morally grey. It's very good. Bianca's arc wasn't as satisfying, but I feel like it did come to a good conclusion. And that was just the biggest issue. Not too bad. Overall, I'd say my favourite actor was the Jackal, with points going to some of the minor characters. I think Nuria's actress did a very good job. And I'm really looking forward to seeing season 2, which I'm going to get into my theories for now.
It's all ogre now.
Okay, now, season 2 most likely is going to come out middle of 2026, maybe a bit late in it. Filming is supposed to have started, but I'm not sure if it has yet. I need to check online. Anyway, there's going to be a lot that happens in this season. We're obviously going to see the Jackal try and find his family. He's going to have a bit of a personal stake in this. We're going to see the Jackal going after Winthrop to tie up the loose ends. There's definitely going to be some sort of new protagonist. MI6 is not going to leave this, and they're going to keep going after the Jackal. We might see more of Gary. Now, River. I feel like UDC's partner might have had a role in his assassination. He seemed very quick to put River on the side now that UDC's dead. Now, I could be wrong. I could be just completely misreading it, but I bet there's more to it. We're going to see Gary. I'm sure of it, at least maybe even in flashbacks, and I'm hoping we see a bit more of the 11-year period of him being the assassin. I'm hoping the Jackal finds Nuria, but their split is definitely going to be a big part of this, and we'll have to see how it goes. All in all, I'm really looking forward to the next season, and I feel like more people online need to talk about this. And lately I've been watching some really bad shows, and this is really good. I might cover another one that I watched lately that was also quite interesting, called Murderbot. Definitely a different vein to this. Maybe nowhere near as good, but I think it was really well made. The editing was good, the visuals were good, the acting for the most part was quite endearing, and I think the tone works really well. I'm hoping we see more in season 2. I'm kind of wondering what you all think of the Jackal's ending. What are your predictions for the next season? What do you think of the characters? Is there any that you hated completely? Is there any that you loved? Any aspects that you would have changed, or anything you don't really agree with? I'm curious to see. It's one of my favorite series now that I've seen it, and I'm definitely going to be watching first thing when it comes out. And that's all for this video. Not sure how long this is going to come out, but I'm hoping to keep it under an hour. If you enjoyed it, please let me know. Any suggestions in the comments for upcoming videos? Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed it and want to see more. I'm going to be trying releasing a lot more frequently with shorter or longer videos here and there. I like my retrospectives and I love watching them, so I want to make them. And I'm hoping more and more people watch this. I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.